So we'll kind of look at the two geologically dead objects in our solar system, the inner part of our solar system, together. So we have the moon, and then we have Mercury. And these photographs side by side, can you almost kind of, you can definitely see the craters. Now, it's not to say that these two objects were any more struck early on in our solar system than the other objects. It's just that these objects are, like I said, geologically dead, and they didn't have the ability to resurface themselves with any sort of surface erosion or plate tectonics. So the moon, remember we talked a little bit about how the moon was formed, that it actually was, the Earth was hit by an object the size of maybe Mars early on, and so a part of the Earth splashed out and orbited, created kind of a disk around the Earth, and then that material accreted to form the moon. But the moon, from our perspective, has kind of these dark regions and the light region. A little bit ago in this chapter, I showed you the crater Tycho, and there is Tycho, and you can kind of see the white ejecta blanket around Tycho. But remember that the near side of the moon looks very different than the far side of the moon. So here's a series of photographs, kind of from left to right. This would be the early moon, and actually all these craters and that sort of thing. If you were to look on the far side of the moon is really all cratered like that. But anyway, so picture the moon kind of early on, and so it's getting its fair share of craters, okay, getting impacts. And so here we see an impact that actually broke through the thin solid crust of the early moon. And so then notice that the liquid mantle then flowed and filled in where the impact was. And so it's actually these dark regions that we see are kind of solidified liquid mantle that filled these kind of impact regions early on. So we use the word Maria for these dark regions. And long ago that folks, just even using binoculars, thought these might be seas, and actually that's what the Latin word for sea is Maria. So the moon is now geologically dead. Mercury is also geologically dead. I mentioned on an earlier video for this chapter the fact that the moon has kind of this powdery sort of what we call regolith, which is kind of like after you have your barbecue, your charcoals give you that ash. That's kind of what the moon is covered with, and I would imagine that's kind of what Mercury is covered with, kind of that gray regolith. So like this says, there are let me go on to the next one. So this is Mercury. Again, it kind of looks like the moon. But there's a feature on Mercury called the Caloris Basin, and these photos don't do it justice. But what's important about the Caloris Basin is the impact region on one side of the planet of Mercury actually has another side of the planet of Mercury is kind of jumbled up sort of rocks. So basically this was a really heavy hit that Mercury took, and the concussion or the shock wave basically went through the entire planet. So that's the Caloris Basin. If you ever get a chance, there's some really neat videos. There's videos out there about all of the planets, and I think I've got a playlist available from the website for you to take a look at. So this again is the surface of Mercury. Mercury has these long cliffs, sometimes called scarps. And it's thought that these cliffs actually are disjointed regions where, as the planet cooled, because we now think it's not ooey gooey in the center, as it cooled, it solidified, it kind of cracked, and that's scarps, or these cliffs are an indication of the cooling.